Hi guys, my name is Lanita and today I will be introducing you guys to a female warrior, arguably a female warrior. This lady right here, her name is Fumiko Kaneko, and she was born on January 25th and assumably passed away, albeit very suspiciously on her prison on July 23rd, 1926. So as you can tell, she did not have a really fruitful or long life. She was born out of a wedlock, and she was born into a samurai family during a Meiji period. And this is very important at that she was born out of a wedlock. And as you can probably imagine, being a woman during that time, let alone one that was born out of wedlock, which would expel all the legal paper and everything, would not only give you so much hardship but also just incredibly sexist during that time. She never really explicitly claimed that she was a feminist, but as time goes, she did realize that there must be equality between men and women. And also, additionally, just to sum her up, she was a Japanese anarchist and also was a nihilist, and she fought along Korea for their independence against the Japanese imperials. So the reason why I thought she was a very interesting case, I think it was very interesting, perhaps not to celebrate, but to really observe and examine as to the kind of quote-unquote heroism which to an extent translate to a female warrior, so to speak. I think it's very interesting to examine all these form and efforts that has been put to further advance feminism. And I think it's very interesting to take a look at a sort of fight that isn't necessarily the most ethical way to approach. And I think it also begs the question then whether the effort itself, whether the advancement that has been made itself would be worth when the way to pursue it isn't as conventional as one would like it to be. But also, on top of that, we also have to question whether not all of us really have the privilege, really have the power to sort of contribute in a more acceptable or less morbid way, whether this kind of effort, albeit very violent, and I don't think should be celebrated, whether this kind of effort are still worth talking about or they are still worth contributing towards the whole feminist discourse itself. So as I've mentioned previously, Fumiko Kaneko is an anarchist. She did not believe in any form of state. She was a very pessimist anarchist, which means she is against all totalitarianism, and she does not believe and she absolutely rejects power in any form. And even if the society ever come to a place or to a state where there is absolutely no government, no authority, she still doesn't believe. And she has stated that whether revolution is fruitful for the society or civilians, there will always be another form of power or authority that will replace it, which makes her a pessimist anarchist. What is also interesting about her is that she is, as I mentioned previously, she was born Japanese. Before later in her life, she moved to Korea, and because of the hardship that she went through as a Japanese woman that wasn't even legally acknowledged by the state, she kind of chose to side with the other party during the World War, which means she fought along Korea during the Japanese imperialism and occupation in Korea, and she also helped in the Korean March, the March attack. And I think despite the very interesting result of her life, she has endured such extreme just years worth of hardship. She was very much abused as a child, and her family wouldn't really acknowledge her because of her status. And during her younger or youth days, she was very much envious, basically children who gets to go to school. And at that time in Japan, children who were born out of wedlock, they weren't considered as legal citizen, which means you cannot go to school. And just with this issue in itself, I think it's very with this issue in itself, there's a lot to unpack, and I think it needs to be discussed as to how sexist the whole unrecorded marriage this is. Obviously, the controversy that came out of her is that obviously the infamous attempted assassination of one of the Japanese emperor family. Although I do not condone violence or assassination, but I think it's very interesting to question her effort and to consider her circumstances as not only as a woman but also as a political warrior. And I think with her legacy, it's very important to really reevaluate all sorts of effort and all sorts of fights that has been put through in the name of gender equality, whether this kind of contribution and essentially the ethics of it. Not only that, although I'm very reluctantly to call her a female warrior, I don't think her effort, especially considering her circumstances, should easily be dismissed. At the end of the day, the one thing that we can learn from her is that not only perseverance but also the need to really fight for individual freedom, and this individual freedom would later fruit into essentially gender equality as well, right? So yeah, I think that's all about her. Her life is very, very, very interesting. She died in a prison in a very, very, very suspicious circumstances, and I think to say the least I think we should really listen to what she said about anarchism and everything. There isn't really much of record of her talking, and whether it is textual or verbal, but there is one prison memoir that she wrote, which is supposed to be her personal anarchist and nihilist manifesto, so to speak. So yeah, I really suggest you guys check her out. She's a very interesting individual, to say the least. So yeah, thank you.